Well, good morning everybody. Welcome to Denmark. We've just arrived on the old ferry and they're going to be kicking us off any time now. Oop, there we go, we're off, we're up and running. So that's us in Denmark. This is Drudby. So I've just come across on the ferry from Puttgarden and I'm now heading for Copenhagen, and we're off to the Resistance Museum. So we're going to spend an hour or so, hour or two there, and then we're going to be heading back down to Lubeck, where I've got the old what's the name for the night. So I'm not quite sure what goes on along here. I don't know whether it's customs or what. But yeah, all seems to be going into one here. I don't know whether it's open borders or what it is, but it doesn't seem to be pointing in any particular direction. Aha. Yeah. Seems to be, yeah. So this is the customs. See, looks nice. That's it. That's it, we're up and running, we're heading towards Copenhagen. So there's the old Danish police. And there's a sign for Copenhagen, so we're up and running. Let's get on with it, shall we? Yep. A pearly king. Or something along those lines anyhow. So, let's see how far we've got. Right, first sign coming up tells us how far we've got to go. I didn't. No, I didn't. I'll have to stop there. 159 miles to Copenhagen, kilometres, so just over 100 miles. So I just need to have a quick stop up here. Well, here I am in what is almost central Copenhagen. So I'm not far off my destination, which is the Resistance Museum on Esplanade Straße. It's a bit of a madhouse round here, but I have been to this bit before. So just over there is the inner harbour, and all along one side they allow wooden ships, wooden boats to come and moor up. So this is quite a famous bit of Copenhagen. So all we've got to do now is get along to our destination. Well, good afternoon from Denmark, or to be more precise, the Resistance Museum in Copenhagen. Now, I've just arrived along with about 1 million other tourists. Now, I'm not sure they're actually going where I'm going, but there's coach loads of them. There are coach loads of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my best to go and have a proper look about. So let's get on with it. One of the first things I've come across is a monument to Private Thomas Dynson of the Quebec Regiment, the Black Watch of Canada, who was awarded the Victoria Cross during the First World War on the 12th of August 1918. So there you go, Thomas, well done. There's a fella that's known to the SAS types, Major Anders Larsen, born on the 20th of September 1920, Victoria Cross, Military Cross and 2 bars. And he died on the 9th of April 1987. So Anders, he did well. And then we've got this other fella. Yeah. So he did well for himself as well. The men who go first are rarely popular with those who wait for the wind to blow. Kai Berkstead, 1915-1996, Wing Commander, Flying Lieutenant Colonel. There you go. Right. So this is the Danish, or the Museum of Danish Resistance. So this is what you see. It doesn't look like a big building, but this is the sort of things that they got up to. So shall we go in and have a look around? Well, come down 2 floors to the actual museum itself. So we're just going to have a little wander around to see what we can see. Now there's about 1,000 people upstairs, all aiming to come charging down here in a minute. So I'm just trying to get ahead of the game. So yeah, so 1940, as we know, good old Hitler and his boys managed to dive in to Denmark and take it over. Now they weren't particularly nice to the Danes. So on the 9th of April 1940, Hitler invades Denmark, and that's when their resistance starts. So I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview of what to expect. I think you'll probably have to come here by yourselves, because it's a busy little museum. There's lots and lots of people all descending the 2 floors to get down to the start of it. But I just got ahead. Good old Jürgen there. Now, the resistance in Denmark didn't go particularly well for the resistors. If they was caught, they would get a pretty tough time of it. And so, yeah, they generally, what would happen is that if they was caught, they would be tortured and they would be sent off to other things, to concentration camps. So that's the size of it. So it gives lots of information on different guys. A Danish Nazi, yeah. They had those also in in Norway. Remember the Danish Nazi party? Yeah. And it didn't end well for them at the end of the war either. So Bolshevism. Yeah. So the Germans that were here during the war had a pretty decent time of it. So 5,000 Danish seamen sailing for United Nations. Yeah. So the battle for the Atlantic, obviously. There was a few Danish ships that were involved in that and Danish sailors. So there's old matey, Henning Brondrum, blaming Nazi sympathiser. So 1940-41, the policy of accommodation. Yeah, so they were using Danes to split on each other. But Denmark was a route for Allied prisoners of war to get into Denmark, and it would be easier to go from Denmark to Sweden than it was from Germany to Sweden. So Miss Harting. I guess she was one of the resistance leaders. Come back. So life under Nazi-occupied Denmark wouldn't have been all that good. Everything would have been in short supply. So in the beginning there were a couple of thousand at most, are active in the Danish resistance. People joined for different reasons. Patriots and conservatives are driven by shame and national sentiment. Imagine that Denmark was occupied and virtually without a fight. They are resisting occupation for a free Denmark. For the communist fighting the Nazis is just one step on the way. So I don't know about old Carl Christensen, but yeah. These are some of the tools they must have used. Good old Gestetner hand printing press, eh? Yeah. I guess they used these for printing the old underground newsletters and typing it all up. Yeah, and then distributing it. Keep up the resistance. Yeah. So there's a lot of information in here. A lot of stuff that was from the time. Oh, look at that. Printing stuff. So, yeah, resistance. Resistance in Denmark was dealt pretty harshly. Out the Danish intelligence services intercept information about the Germans' plans to pick up the telephone and see what you could discover. So there's some interactive stuff in here as well. So if you want to get here and have a bash, come and fill your boots. So this is good. This is the Danish in exile, John Christmas Müller. He encouraged Danes on the 6th of September 1943 to commit sabotage in a radio broadcast from BBC in London. So, yeah, it's all right for him in exile, isn't it? But it's the poor buggers that's on the ground. But the Danish government increasing sabotage threats, the policy of accommodation and the ability of politicians to secure Danish influence by retaining their position as the Germans' negotiated partner. The Germans demand the sabotage be stopped. The government is under pressure. On September 2nd, 1942, Prime Minister holds a radio address to the nation, encourage all Danes to renounce sabotage. Yeah, I don't think that went well, did it? So these are the propaganda newspapers that were produced here in Denmark. I don't think they quite showed the good side or the bad side of what the Germans were doing. Yeah, so August 1943, there was trouble on the streets, and I think that was put down pretty harshly. It sparked off confrontation with several Danish cities. So the unrest, I guess, was put down pretty brutally by the Germans. That's what they generally did. Any resistance to the Germans, and it was dealt with pretty harshly. So, and then one of the things, I mean, this was a big thing also in France, and after the war, and in fact all the occupied lands were girlfriends of the Germans after the war were treated particularly nicely by the population. There he is, Jürgen Kilder again. And yeah, you can see a Jewish star on there. Don't know what happened to a lot of the German or the Danish Jews, but I'm sure they weren't treated particularly well. And there's a Swedish flag. So I guess this is one of the boats that did an awful lot of the ferrying backwards and forwards, particularly in 1944. insecurity spreads, the Danish government has ceased to function. The Germans have to negotiate with civil servants. The occupation has entered a dramatic new phase. The dreaded Gestapo have been deployed and are brutal in their suppression of rising resistance. They use torture and persecution. Prisoners are deported to Germany concentration camps. Resistance becomes visible on the streets. This is 1944. Announcement of the clearly killing of the author Major Merck in a retaliation for the liquidation of a Nazi fishmonger by the resistance. So the resistance knocked off a collaborator and then the reprisals started. So there's quite a lot here. There's the saboteur, KK, and the informer. Yeah, I guess there was a few of those about, informers. And this is what happens to people. They're tortured. And I guess that's a book. German mugshot album with photos of captured and wanted members of the resistance. So that's what the Germans said. And that's the sort of punishment that they dished out. Not nice people really, are they? And I guess that's some of the weapons used by the resistance. Flame and citron. There's some fascinating stuff in here. There really is. That's KK pistol. Yeah. Coat with bullet holes in from the shootout between the saboteur KK and members of a Gestapo. The red holes is from the KK gun and the white ones holes from the gun of the Gestapo officer. So there you go. So there are a lot of reprisals against the saboteurs. Heading Brondrum again. They're pretty tough guys, these resistance fighters, taking a hell of a risk. And the Germans introduce a curfew in Copenhagen. The locals respond by street fires and a general strike. Good on them. Yeah. Unfortunately, it didn't end well, did it? So the police are jailed. The absence of a police force leads to insecurity. Shopkeepers attempt to prevent theft. Street artists flourish. And the black market spreads wider. Yeah, that's what happens. So this mush HIPPO uniform. HIPPO is the abbreviation for the doobly what's the thing, Bob? Yeah. So this is Moody Hartek again. She's a tough little bird. This is more like it. This is probably SOE trained guys. The railway sabotage on the job. The Germans are squeezed at the frontiers. The summoning of troops from Denmark. The transfers go through Jutland. Saboteurs attempt to delay the transport by blasting railway tracks. Yeah, so that's basically what they do. Put the good old PE on the tracks and make a little bit of a bang, which derails the trains. So that's obviously a Sten gun and stuff supplied by SOE. This basically shows airdrops by effectively SOE or the Allies to the German resistance groups from August 43 through to 45, and the Danish effectively sabotaged, caused damage valued at a minimum of 200,000 Danish crowns in present day currency. That's a few bob. So the resistance was pretty active here in Denmark, and it looks like they dropped an awful lot of stuff for them. So the resistance would lay on landing drops and holding up their torches, and the RAF would be dropping containers full of weapons, ammunition, explosives, grenades, the lot. And there's there's an S phone there. So they obviously had the SOE agents operating in Denmark throughout the war. So I guess most of them would have been Danes, and they're all trained up by SOE back in England and then dropped back into Denmark. So things didn't go particularly well. There's only one toilet. So this is what happened when you got both ends of the train, the German guards. So this is expelling people, sticking them on trains and sending them off to concentration camps. So that's what, with nice warm clothes for a very thin, stripy one. So I guess on the 4th of May, the radio is switched on at 8:30 p.m. The sound of a Danish news broadcaster by BBC London pours into living rooms nationwide. Everyone sits waiting for the Germans to surrender. Just 5 minutes into the broadcast, journalist Johannes G. Sorensen turns off his microphone. A colleague passes him a message. Then the announcement comes. Wow. So that's when the BBC wasn't woke. So blackout curtains are joyously burned and people pour out into the streets. Denmark is free again. So, yeah, after best part of 5 years under Nazi occupation, Denmark's free. That morning we passed an open truck. Thanks, I saw the Germans tarts too. Yeah. Yeah, those women that collaborated with the Germans had their head shaved and paraded through the streets. Yeah, it was never going to end well, was it? That's the unfortunate part of occupation. Here's a little known fact. While the rest of Denmark celebrates, Russian bombs drop over Bornholm. Russian troops make a landing and remain on the island until April 46. Now, I didn't know that. Bornholm must have had a real brunt of it. So Bornholm is an island between Sweden and Denmark, and it's a Swedish island. And the Allies finally sort of asked the Russians to leave in 1946. The freedom had barely been announced when Danish volunteers who served in the German army were something or other involved with German soldiers or openly supported the Nazis are brought to account. Yeah, the collaborators. It didn't take long to get hold of them buggers, did it? Those that supported the Nazis all the way through the war wanted an easy life of it. And so the women had their heads shaved. Yeah. Reckoning hour, eh? So after the war, those resistance fighters that were either captured and sent to concentration camps, those that did survive and come home had a life of the physical and mental trouble. And the government was eventually forced to honour the resistance fighters, those that stayed at home, those who were sent to concentration camps. And they were treated eventually as heroes. Yeah, so for the resistance fighters who faced up to the Nazis' brutality, let us remember that they didn't die in vain. So, yeah, some of these guys went on, say Jorgen went on to qualify as a doctor in 1947, later a consultant, recognised cancer research and head of fibring laboratory. As a doctor he made active contributions to research and on concentration camp syndrome. Chairman of Freedom Founders. So some of these guys did go on, but it must have been a hell of a struggle for them. The enemy had been defeated, living a desperate resistance movement with no joint goal or political project. established Danish politicians and parties resumed power. Most members of the resistance were left struggling to return to their ordinary civilian lives. But the resistance had won a moral victory. In hindsight, the government's policy of accommodation was seen as wrong and the resistance being left to fight. Yeah, quite right too. Well, that's it. I've just been around the Danish Resistance Museum. Now, I've driven sort of 120 odd miles to get here today and been on a ferry, and I've got that 120 miles and a ferry to go back on. Now, I think it's been absolutely worth the visit. It's very deceptive. From looking at the building on the outside, it looks small. But what it does is it takes you down 2 floors to the actual exhibition itself. And the exhibition's laid out from sort of 1939, and it takes you through a journey all the way to 1946, really. And it's really well laid out. There's enough information that you're not overwhelmed. There is an audio guide that you can go around with that tells you all the different stuff that's going, the different stages. So if you get the opportunity, do come. It's absolutely worth it. And at 120 Danish crowns to get in, it's worth it. So if you're in Denmark, come and fill your boots. Oh, did I mention that they've also got a cafe here, and I'm just having a coffee before heading back to Lübeck. So let's see what we can see in Lübeck.